Today I'm in Tockenham, a small village between Lynham and Royal Wootton Bassett in North Wiltshire. In 1994, Time Team came to Tockenham and uncovered a lost Roman villa. In this video, I'm going to explore that story in more detail and try to uncover the link between the villa and the North Wessex Way, the ancient road between Oxford and Bristol that I've been researching for the last 3 to 4 years. If you've not heard about the North Wessex Way before, then come and watch some of the other videos on my YouTube channel. Now, at the time, I loved the Time Team programme. But looking at it now, they talked about the villa, but they didn't really put much of a context around it. And I think some of the research I've done recently starts to tell a bigger and richer story about why the villa was here. So let's go and find out more. So I've known Tockenham for as long as I can remember. I was christened in the church here, I was married in the church here, and my parents are buried in the churchyard here. So it's always been a village that's very close to my heart. So it's quite exciting in 1994 when we heard that Time Team was coming to the village to do a dig. The Time Team episode from Tockenham aired on Sunday, January the 22nd, 1995, as episode 3 of the second series. By then, the programme had built up a cult following, not least because of the enthusiasm of its main presenter, Tony Robinson, better known as Baldric in Blackadder. What they uncovered at Tockenham took us locals by surprise. A lost Roman villa, or at least the location of a lost Roman villa, because by the end of the programme they had clues that the villa had been there, but no actual physical structure was uncovered. The ancient statue on the outside wall of the church was initially thought to be the Roman god of medicine, Aesculapius. But later in the programme, an expert suggested that it was probably a local god that came from the villa. Tony Robinson also looked at the stone used to build the church in the late 1200s. While most of the stone is rough, there are some big blocks of cut stone which may well have come from the villa site a few fields away. My eye was drawn to this window frame. The stone surrounding the window looks like it was cut for some previous purpose before ending up in the church wall. There has been plenty of other evidence of Roman habitation found in Tockenham, with pottery dated to the 1st century and all the way through to the end of the Roman occupation. An impressive fish head waterspout has also been found at the bottom of a pond in the local area, with the expert on the programme proclaiming it to be the finest he'd seen. This is the field where Time Team found the lost Roman villa. The area where the villa was is now covered with grass, and beyond that, the field is ploughed and planted with crops. The geophysical surveys found the outlines of the villa, showing it to be a substantial building, but as I said previously, nothing significant was found when 3 trenches were dug, leading them to the conclusion that the foundations had been robbed at some point, possibly to get stone to build the church. However, Time Team did try to recreate the villa digitally, using what was cutting-edge technology in 1994 to create this image of what the villa may have looked like. At the end of the programme, they concluded it was either some sort of temple used for worship or a villa attached to a complex of farm buildings. So why my interest in a Time Team dig from 1994? Well, the story starts when I was preparing to give a talk about the North Wessex Way to the Royal Wootton Bassett Historical Society. I was curious whether the North Wessex Way had any impact on the history of Wootton Bassett. The next few minutes of this video are going to be a bit map heavy as we try to interpret what may have happened over the centuries. We'll start with this map of North Wiltshire. This was published in 1773 by 2 surveyors, Andrews and Drury. It was a subscription map, and they went to all the major landowners asking them to subscribe. It gives us a fascinating view of the county before the canals and the railways came through, and about 70 years before the first Ordnance Survey map was published. Here you can see Purton in the top left and Wootton Bassett in the centre of the map. I'll overlay the route of the North Wessex Way in pink, and then the road from Purton to Wootton Bassett in green. Wootton Bassett is only 3.5 miles from Purton, and the high street is aimed directly in Purton's direction. So it's safe to guess that over its history, Wootton Bassett has benefited from having a major east-west route just to the north of it. If we zoom in a little on Wootton Bassett, I was curious to see where the road from Purton extended beyond the town. I was surprised to see that the road marked on Andrews and Drury's map showed it going to Tockenham, which I'll mark here in yellow. Today the road goes from Wootton Bassett direct to Lyneham, so I had to investigate further and find out what happened. If we look at the modern Ordnance Survey map, you can see the main road from Lyneham with the blue arrow pointing at it. This was only built in 1791 as a turnpike road from Wootton Bassett to Christian Mulford. So before that, the road went further south, marked by the yellow arrow. All that remains today is a public footpath, marking the route. So why does all this matter? Well, if you follow the old route from Wootton Bassett, it ends in the exact spot that Time Team found the lost Roman villa in 1994. In this screenshot from the original programme, you can see the field and the outline of the villa superimposed over it. The road from Wootton Bassett finishes in the top right of the picture by the yellow arrow. I think you'll agree this is more than just mere coincidence. We have a road leading from Purton, which was a significant Roman settlement, running through Wootton Bassett and finishing in Tockenham by the site of the Roman villa. I had to investigate this further, so with my production assistant Dodger, we set out to follow this old road. I'm following the route of the old Wootton Bassett to Tockenham road, and today it's all a public footpath. As you can see here, I'm going along the footpath across the top of the Little Park estate, and they've very kindly mowed the path so that I know where I'm going. But I've crossed into the Little Park estate over this stile, and behind this hedgerow that runs along for hundreds of metres is, I think, a secret track that we'll go and investigate now. So I'm now on what I think was the old road between Tockenham and Wootton Bassett. Why do I think that? Well, I'm on a raised piece of ground here, probably about 12-14 feet across. On either side there's a ditch, and this raised piece of ground runs for hundreds of metres. You wouldn't think it was a road today or a track today. You've got to watch out for the foxholes and the badger holes. But you get a sense that if you were wanting to traverse boggy ground and make a track that were usable all the time, you may want to build a raised walkway. That would have been usable even in the wet weather and well drained. Now this double ditch and raised walkway or raised piece of ground runs for hundreds of metres in both directions. So is this the original track between Wootton Bassett and Tockenham? And if so, when was it built? We know that it was marked on the Andrews and Drury map from 1773. So it predates the turnpike road that runs between Wootton Bassett and Lyneham on that map by at least 50 years. And therefore it would have been the original route between Wootton Bassett and Tockenham. And we know Tockenham's been occupied for hundreds of years, and there was a Roman villa there. So perhaps this almost goes back to the Roman times. If you've been a traveller on the old Wootton Bassett to Tockenham road before the 1790s, when the turnpike road between Lyneham and Wootton Bassett was built, then as you came along the road you could have stopped and just taken in the view. Beyond the trees there on the hill would be Wootton Bassett, And then you're looking out across the North Wiltshire countryside from the top of this hill at Little Park up towards the edge of the Marlborough Downs at Cliff Pipard in the distance. A lovely, quiet, peaceful spot just to stop and maybe contemplate before you set off on your journey again. So the old road here runs through what is now the Wiltshire Golf Club. Now, the Wiltshire Golf Club was built in 1991, or they started building it in 1991, and at the time they had terrible problems with drainage. The soil around here is clay, and anyone who farms on this clay soil will tell you that it gets really wet. So they had a challenge to drain it, make it playable, and as you can see here, along the edge of the old road, there would have been a ditch either side, but in this case they've had to build a really deep ditch. It's even after all this dry weather, you can still see there's dampness and water at the bottom of the ditch. But it does look like they've dug this ditch out and piled the soil back onto what was the old road running through the site. Here you get a better view of what this route was like. It's still covered with trees and undergrowth, but you can see, I just pan across out of the way, Dodger, from here on the left with a ditch, right across through here to the ditch on the far side. Here the track would be 20-25 feet across, more than enough for two carts to travel past each other going in opposite directions. And we could just stroll along here for a little bit further just to get a sense of what it was like. Because it runs for on and on, hundreds of metres. All very overgrown today. Big oak trees, beech trees growing right down the middle of it. To clear all that away, you start to get the picture that this was the original track through this part of the land of North Wiltshire between Wootton Bassett and Tockenham. So we've reached the end of the road from Wootton Bassett to Tockenham. The raised bit has long since gone, or was never needed because the soil here drains so much better. But we come to the T-junction here. The lane to the right goes off to Tockenham Wick, and off to the left goes to Tockenham itself. So why do I think that this route from Wootton Bassett to Tockenham has something to do with the Roman villa? Well, if we just cross over the road here, both ways, make sure we don't get run over, up this bank, up you go, Dodger. Here we are in the field where Time Team found the echoes of the foundations of a Roman villa back in the mid-90s. Now, if you were building a villa here of some size and some importance, probably for agricultural reasons, you would have wanted access for the crops that you grow back to the nearest big centre of population, and that's Cirencester. So if you go back up the road to Wootton Bassett, past Wootton Bassett, up to Purton, which was another Roman settlement, on to the river crossing at Cricklade, and then up the Roman road to Cirencester. It's not that far, probably 15 miles at the most. So it would have been an important route out of here and in here to get building materials in, supplies in, people in, to do the work on the land. So I do think the route from Wootton Bassett to Tockenham has its roots in the Roman period. There's no other route that easily takes you through to Cirencester without having to go downhill and uphill and across some fairly boggy land. Time Team found a lost Roman villa, and now we have a road connecting it to Cirencester. But why did the Romans choose Tockenham as a place to build their villa? Time Team's conclusion was that it was a temple of some sort, or a villa with agricultural purposes. I think that agriculture was the reason. Most of the land in this part of North Wiltshire is grassland, clay soil, and ideal for dairy farming. But just in Tockenham and in a strip that runs up to Lynham, the soil is much, much richer, and it's ideal for growing crops and for arable farming. The soil here is easy to plough, drains well, it's quite rich, and the Romans weren't stupid. They would have known that this was great for arable crops. And here's my assistant, Dodger. Thank you, Dodge. Right, take two. So as you can see, the soil here is quite rich, easy to plough, drains well, ideal for growing arable crops. And the Romans weren't stupid. They would have needed food, and they would have identified this area as somewhere where they could grow crops quite easily. With the benefit of modern technology and the internet, which Time Team wouldn't have had in 1994, we can see the soil types for the Tockenham area. The brown area at the centre is highly fertile and free-draining soil, which is only found in 3% of the UK. A small oasis of land that is perfect for growing crops. The yellow is less fertile, but still suitable for arable crops, and the green is less fertile clay-based soil, which is better suited for dairy farming. Bronze and Iron Age pottery have been found on this site, so maybe the Romans found it already being used by local tribes for growing crops and took it over for themselves. Time Team found an amazing piece of lost Roman history in 1994, and I hope you'll agree we've added some context to their find. The site was almost certainly agricultural, and it was linked to the Roman settlements in Purton and Cirencester by a road that was itself lost and forgotten about when it was bypassed in the late 1700s. Maybe we could persuade Time Team to come back and take a closer look at the lost road next time. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick visit to Tockenham and finding out more about Time Team's lost Roman villa and the old road that connected the villa up to the North Wessex Way. Who knows what might be discovered as that road gets researched more in the future. But for now, if you'd like to find out more about the North Wessex Way, then please visit my website at www.northwessexway.co.uk, or click on the subscribe button and watch some more of my YouTube videos. So thank you very much for your time. Watch out for more videos in the future, but for now, goodbye from Tockenham.